What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. With the NFL draft just about a month away, I'm about to ramp up the draft content. With that being said, today I will be redrafting the first round of the 2022 NFL draft. This class was so fun to do. That's because it wasn't your typical class. There wasn't a clear number one quarterback or a clear number one edge rusher. There was a ton of parity all over the place, and that means there's room for a ton of differing opinions, and that opens the door for plenty of conversation. So I want you guys to leave all your thoughts down in the comment section below, because that's why I do this, to conversate with you guys. Before we get into it, as always, I have to give a shout out to my partner, ThriveFantasy. If you're interested in sports betting, specifically on player props, you gotta check them out. You can bet on the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, golf, MMA, whatever you want to bet on, ThriveFantasy has it. They also offer different weekly contests that you can get involved in. They're always running different types of promotions as well, so follow them on the social media pages, keep up to date with all of those. And the best part is you get a 100% deposit match when you deposit using the link down in the description below and using code CAVE, CAVE. I would appreciate it greatly, and it helps me out a ton. So if you are interested, the link is down below. Like I said, use code CAVE, jump on Thrive Fantasy, and take advantage of everything they have to offer. But for now, let's jump into the redraft. So let's kick things off. Number one overall, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, and they took Travon Walker. I'm already going a controversial route. I know some people would say otherwise, but at first overall, instead, I am going to be going with Sauce Gardner. To me, he has been hands down the best player coming out of this draft class just after one season. I mean, Sauce did have one of the best college resumes and draft profiles that I feel like I've seen in recent memory, but it was downplayed because he played at Cincinnati, and in all reality, the numbers, the film, and all the physical attributes that he had to offer were not telling a lie. In his first season, he was a Pro Bowler, he was an All-Pro, he's in the conversation for being the best at his position. This dude was everything he was advertised to be coming out of school, so I do think he deserves to be the first overall pick here. And for the second overall selection, we have the Detroit Lions, who took Aiden Hutchinson, and in this redraft, I will also have them taking Aiden Hutchinson. If Sauce isn't the first overall pick in this redraft, it would be Aiden. I did have a big debate in my own head about who it should be, but I ended up going with Sauce, and Aiden is the clear runner-up, so I do think he deserves to still be going to Detroit. Not much to discuss here. Third overall, we have the Texans, who utilized that pick to take Derek Stingley. He didn't have the best first season ever, but he wasn't utilized correctly, to be fair. Honestly, at the time, I was a little bit skeptical of the selection, not because of who Derek Stingley was, but just because of the positional value and the comparison of cornerback to edge rusher. I thought they should have probably been going that route. With that being said, I do have them diverting course to take an edge rusher, being Kayvon. I think in my mock draft, I actually had the Texans taking Kayvon, so I do think it makes sense, and Thibodeau is a Texan. The fourth pick, we have the New York Jets, who originally took Sauce. He's obviously off the board now. Instead, I have them taking another guy that is already a New York Jet, and that is being Garrett Wilson. After the rookie season Garrett Wilson had, something tells me in a redraft, he wouldn't be making it that much further down this board for the Jets to get. Knowing the Jets needed a receiver in this class because they took Garrett Wilson, I figured they might as well be the first team to take one, and he had the best rookie season, and without question in my mind, because he had a carousel of terrible quarterbacks throwing to him, and he still had an 1,100-yard season. Have him taken here in a redraft just because he is obviously going to be phenomenal. Next at number 5, we have the New York Giants, who in the draft took Kayvon Thibodeau, another guy that is already off the board, and I do have them sticking with the edge rusher position in this redraft. I have them selecting the actual first overall pick, being Travon Walker. I know he was taken at number 1 with the idea that you're betting on his physical traits, and he's supposed to be a project. In my opinion, I don't think you should be drafting projects at first overall. I don't think drafting him at 2 or 3 is even a good idea either, so I have him falling to the 5th selection here. I know that might not be the most popular opinion. I don't think him falling to 5 is too egregious. I understand what his career path is supposed to look like. He wasn't supposed to come on the scene and have a 15-sack season. I understand that, and I think the Giants would be more than happy to take on this project at the 5th overall selection, so I have him taking Travon Walker here. Next at number 6, we have the Carolina Panthers. In real life, they took 𝗂𝗓𝗠𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗦. They had a clear need for a tackle at the time. I still have them taking a tackle, just not 𝗂𝗓𝗠𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗑𝗦. I have them going with Tyler Smith instead. Tyler was drafted 24th overall to the Cowboys, and he played a ton of snaps for that team. He was pretty much plug and played instantly, and I thought he held his own pretty damn well. Not that 𝗂𝗓𝗠𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗑𝗦 didn't. I almost had them taking 𝗂𝗓𝗠𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗑𝗦 in the redraft anyway. I think I just prefer Tyler Smith, to be honest with you, so that's who I went here, but they obviously needed a tackle. I just kind of diverted course a little bit. Now, at number 7, the Giants were back on the clock. In the actual draft, they decided to take offensive tackle Evan Neal out of Alabama. I didn't hate the pick, and in this redraft, if I had full control, I would be going a different course, which is why I have them taking a receiver in Chris Olave, and they certainly could have used him this year, let me tell you. My God, Daniel Jones' number 1 receiver was Darius Slayton for like 3/4 of the year, and then Isaiah Hodgins from Buffalo's practice squad came on the scene and started making a name for himself, and they're both talented, don't get me wrong, but they're not Chris Olave, and they certainly could have used a Chris Olave this season. I know they had Kadarius Toney, so maybe they had that in the back of their mind, but knowing now, hindsight says they traded him, and that's what I got them doing. Chris Olave, you are a New York Giant. Next at number 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons, who in the actual draft went with wide receiver Drake London out of USC. It was pretty obvious they were going with a pass catcher. It was just a matter of who. Knowing that, the Falcons will be taking a receiver in the redraft, but instead I have them going with wide receiver Christian Watson out of North Dakota. He was taken at the top of the second by the Packers. I know that might be controversial, but out of all the receivers, I think he has the most upside because of his athleticism by a mile. This dude is an athletic freak of nature. So Christian Watson, you are an Atlanta Falcon. At number 9, we have the Seahawks, who went with Charles Cross, the offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. I have them staying on the same course with an offensive tackle because it was a very big need of theirs going into this class. Instead, like I said earlier, 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗦 and Tyler Smith were very neck and neck in my mind, and I have them going with 𝗧𝗠𝗑 instead here. 𝗧𝗠𝗠's first season, he saw a ton of action. I thought he fared very well up front with the Carolina Panthers, one of the best run blockers in this class. I think the NC State alum would have fit very well up front in Seattle, so I have them going with 𝗧𝗠𝗑. Now on the clock at number 10, we have the New York Jets once again. This is where they originally selected Garrett Wilson, just kind of reversing where they took the position. So now I'm going to be taking a corner. Obviously, Sauce is gone, so we can't go with him. This pick, I have the Jets selecting Tariq Woolen out of Texas San Antonio. He was originally selected by the Seahawks at 153rd overall. In real life, I feel like that Tariq Woolen selection was actually the best pick in terms of return on investment that Seattle got. I mean, a 5th rounder for a guy that ended up being in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year, one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. He's also a Pro Bowler. I can see this dude being an All-Pro someday. Knowing the way Sauce fit with the Jets, I feel like Tariq would fit just as well if Sauce was not their option. So yeah, Woolen is a New York Jet. The 11th overall pick now, we have the New Orleans Saints, who in the actual draft traded up to select Chris Olave. He is off the board now. I would have preferred they went with an offensive tackle at this spot. They waited for Trevor Penning, who really did nothing in his first season, got hurt really before the season even began. In the redraft, they're going tackle, and I have them going with Mississippi State's Charles Cross. He did go earlier in the actual draft. I think he falls a little bit here, and he ends up with New Orleans. Offensive line was brutal. Run blocking, pass blocking, any blocking, they were not very good this season. They definitely could have used a guy like Charles Cross to really bolster up that left side of that offensive line, so I think Charles makes sense here. A little over a third of the way through the redraft, at number 12, we have the Detroit Lions with their second pick of the first round. This is when they switched out of nowhere with the Minnesota Vikings and took Jameson Williams out of Alabama. I do still think they go with the receiver here. I'm just not going to take Jameson because I really am taking rookie season heavily into account, and obviously he didn't play very much. Instead, I have them going with Drake London out of USC. He went to the Falcons at 8th. I have him going here at 12, not falling much farther. I think people underappreciate or underestimate how good Drake London is. I feel like I'm probably doing it right now because he didn't get very good quarterback play whatsoever. Marcus Mariota was flat out terrible. Arthur Smith just wanted to run the ball no matter how many points they were down. So lucky enough for Drake London, he is free of the grasp of Marcus Mariota, Arthur Smith, and whatever other clownery they have going on over there, and you are a Detroit Lion. At 13, we have the Super Bowl runner-ups, the Philadelphia Eagles, who used this selection to take interior defensive lineman Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Seeing as if he's still on the board in the redraft, I think it just makes sense that the Eagles still go with Jordan Davis in this scenario. So yeah, Jordan, you are going to remain an Eagle in this case. Not much else to say here. On the clock at 14, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They ended up taking Kyle Hamilton, who is still on the board for them, kind of to my surprise at the time. The redraft, I do have them changing things up just a little bit. They're going to go to the interior offensive line and end up with the guy that they ended up drafting in the actual draft like 10 picks later in Tyler Linderbaum. In a redraft, he would not have fallen much farther, in my opinion. But instead of Baltimore missing out, he was still on the board in the redraft, so I just had them take him at 14. Now at 15, we have the Texans back on the clock for their second selection of the first round. In the actual draft, they went with offensive lineman Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. The redraft, though, I have them diverting to the defensive side of the ball, and Derek Stingley's still on the board, and that's exactly who I'm going to go with. Knowing how Derek Stingley's initial season went, I think the 15th overall pick instead of the 3rd would have made a lot more sense. I said earlier, it was not Derek's fault whatsoever, but the expectations lower severely from top 3 to top 15. Now with DeMeco Ryans, of course, I do expect Derek Stingley to really come into his own, but yeah, I do think he deserves to drop a bit, and to 15, I think isn't too bad. Down to 16th overall, we have the Washington Commanders on the clock. This is where they use their selection to take wide receiver Jahan Dotson. On the redraft board, there's one particular prospect that will not slide much farther if not taken here. That would be Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. The way some analysts talked about him, I kind of expected him to jump off the page a little bit more, and also expected him to get taken higher in the actual draft. In this scenario, he slides down a couple more picks. I think the Commanders go with the best player available here, and that would be Kyle Hamilton. Moving on to the 17th selection, we have the Chargers, who in the actual draft went with Boston College's interior offensive lineman Zion Johnson. And although it's not on the interior, I have them sticking with offensive line, instead going on the outside to the tackle position, and I have them going with Evan Neal, who maybe to your surprise is still on the board in my redraft. But unfortunately, in his rookie season, he was unable to adapt to the NFL level. It's as simple as that. There were flashes of dominance Titans with his size and strength, and if he's able to acclimate himself to the faster game, I think there's really nothing to worry about when it comes to Evan Neal. But after what we saw in his initial season, I do think he has to drop a bit. The Chargers are going to pair him on the opposite side of Rashawn Slater. Next up at 18th overall, we have the Tennessee Titans, who got this pick after trading A.J. Brown for a first. Just end up drafting a receiver that they hope to turn into A.J. Brown and Treylon Burks. And instead of Treylon Burks, I am going to still have them taking a receiver. But this time around, they're going to be going with NFL youngboy. They're going with George Pickens. After seeing his rookie season, it's probably safe to say he deserved to be taken in the first place. There was nothing wrong with Treylon Burks. I think he's going to be an excellent wideout. He just really struggled to stay healthy, and I would prefer Pickens in the spot and probably overall. Now at 19, the Saints are back on the clock with their second pick of the first round. This is where they went with Trevor Penning, like I was describing earlier. Probably thinking, well, you already took an offensive tackle. You can't go with offensive line again. Well, guess what? I am. I have them going with Boston College's interior offensive lineman Zion Johnson. He ended up going to the Chargers around this point of the actual draft. The receiver room might have been a slight issue if they didn't go with Chris Olave, but there were other guys they could have drafted in this class after the first round, or, they could have just spent money on someone else because, the Saints don't give a flying shit about the cap. And seeing as how much their offensive line struggles, I feel like I'm doing them justice by, in a redraft, taking 2 offensive linemen. So Zion Johnson, you are a Saint. 20, we have the Steelers on the clock. They utilize this pick to draft the only quarterback taken in the first round in Kenny Pickett out of Pitt. I'm going to have them do the same thing in the redraft. I don't see why not. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be a pretty solid starter in this league, and people aren't that high on him. But I know game managers are not the wave nowadays, but sometimes that's all you need. And I think Pittsburgh, with that coaching staff and the defense they typically have, are fitting for just needing a game manager. So I think Kenny Pickett's going to be solid for Pittsburgh. Moving on to 21st overall, we have the Chiefs. In the actual draft, they went with Trent McDuffie, and I'll explain as to why that was so painful to me in just a little bit. But in my redraft, I have them going in a different direction. This being on the offensive side of the ball, I have them going with Breece Hall, maybe to your surprise. I know Isaiah Pacheco was excellent for the Chiefs, and that might give you all the reason why you believe you shouldn't be taking Breece Hall here. The way it's computing in my mind, just seeing how much the Chiefs ran the ball last year and how effective they were at it, just imagine if they truly had a home run hitter in Breece Hall in that backfield instead of a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. That would have been flat out unfair. I know it kind of might be unrealistic knowing how running backs are viewed nowadays. The combination of Breece in that backfield really tickled my brain, so I liked it enough to go with it in this redraft. And Mr. Hall, you are a Kansas City Chief. Next at 22nd overall, the Packers are on the board. This is where they took Quay Walker. He's not seeing my draft board, and if you don't know why, go look it up. I'm going to have them going with the receiver here. I think they got lucky by ending up with Christian Watson where they got him. In a redraft, I don't have them missing their opportunity, and here I have them taking wide receiver Jahan Dotson. The Penn State alum is a dog. This dude, he's got a high vertical. He's got great hands. I think he's going to pan out well next to Terry McLaurin in Washington. I think he also would have fit very well with Green Bay, with Aaron Rodgers in his rookie season, as well as with Jordan Love in his second here. Now at 23 on the clock, we have my Buffalo Bills. This is where they swapped with the Baltimore Ravens to end up with Florida Gators, Kaiir Elam. In all fairness to Kaiir, he really did not get the playing time he deserved. There was a lot of questionable decision-making when it came to our cornerback playing time this year. Instead, I'm going to go with the guy that I was dreaming we ended up with instead. I had him mocked to the Bills. I thought he was going to fall to us just for the Patriots and the Chiefs to collude, and he was taken right out from under me. And instead, I'll have the Bills going with Washington's Trent McDuffie. Everyone knew the Bills were going with a corner, and seeing the Chiefs and the Patriots, 2 teams that we've had beef with over the last few years, collude together to take my boy, it really pissed me off. To remediate my pain, I am having the Bills take Trent McDuffie. Don't ask any questions. 24th overall, Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. They went with an offensive tackle here in Tyler Smith. Obviously, he's been off the board for a very long time now. You still have them going the direction of an offensive tackle. They'll have to pivot. I have them taking Georgia's Jamari Salyer. It's actually a 6th round pick made by the Chargers, so I really have a big jump happening here from 6th to 1st round. He was the highest rated pass blocker out of any rookie offensive tackles by PFF. Knowing Dallas was primarily going in the direction of an offensive tackle, I have them going with the one that I think is the next best remaining on the redraft board, being Jamari out of Georgia. 25th overall, Baltimore Ravens, 2nd pick of the 1st round. This is where they ended up going with Tyler Linderbaum. Obviously, I took him earlier for the Ravens at 14th overall. Here, I got them doing what a lot of people feel like they should have done a long time ago. That would be taking a wide receiver. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to take for them to actually upgrade that position. Until they do, they will continue to feel the consequences of not having any pass catchers to support. Maybe if it's not Lamar Jackson, whoever their quarterback is. In this case, I'm controlling the scenario. I got you, Lamar. I have them taking Treylon Burks, who originally went to the Titans. We struggled to stay healthy at times, which, to be honest with you, would have fit the Baltimore mold very, very well. I think seeing him paired next to 𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗦 would have been a pretty deadly duo, as they're pretty different in archetypes of receiver. I just don't understand what the Ravens have been doing for the last few years, man. On the clock at 27, we have the Jets, who have their third selection of the first round. Crazy to say out loud. In the actual draft, they went with linebacker Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. At the time of the draft, I felt like they needed to go with an offensive tackle with one of these picks. They didn't actually end up doing that, but in the redraft, I still feel the same way, so I will be going that route. The offensive tackle I have them selecting is Central Michigan's Bernhard Raimann. He didn't get nearly as much time as guys like Tyler Smith or 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗦, but he still had a very solid rookie season for the Colts. Jermaine Johnson wasn't bad by any means, but I do think they needed to prioritize the tackle position a little bit more than they did with their first three selections. Bernhard makes a lot of sense here, and he did have a much better rookie season than Jermaine did. Approaching the final stretch here, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars with their second pick in the first round, which they used to select Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah. Devin started off his rookie campaign extremely well, and then he fell off a cliff. Not entirely sure why, but I know I'm not redrafting him. And at this spot instead, I am actually going to have the Jaguars go with a 6th round selection who was taken by the Detroit Lions and James Houston. The Jackson State graduate did not see a ton of playing time to begin his rookie campaign, but it was at the tail end of the year where he started to get playing time and really earn more and more as Detroit's coaching staff realized what they had in him. Now, this might be a bit high for James Houston to be selected, considering he was a 6th round pick, and it's not like he put up 10 sacks in 4 games, but like I said at the beginning of the video, this class was unique. There really was not that many top names. There's a lot of parity across the board. That being said, I got Jacksonville reaching here, and James Houston is my selection out of Jackson State. 28th overall, we have the Packers on the clock. This is where they went with Georgia interior defensive lineman Devontae Wyatt. Really did not do much his rookie year whatsoever. And instead, staying on the front four, I have the Packers selecting defensive end George Karlaftis. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs and was a major contributor with all of the rookies over there and winning that Super Bowl. Struggled to get to the quarterback sometimes, and I feel like they should have prioritized edge rusher a little bit more than they did in this class. George Karlaftis is on the board, and that's who I got them going with. Now, at 29, we have the Patriots, who we all remember ended up taking Cole Strange out of nowhere. I mean, this baffled everybody. Have them diverting course here. I will have them going with a corner instead. That corner is going to be Mississippi State's Martin Emerson, who originally went to the Cleveland Browns in the 2nd. I don't only think he's one of the most underrated corners out of this class, I think he's one of the most underrated corners in the entire NFL. That dude was a dog for Cleveland next to Denzel Ward. I do think he's got a really bright future in this league. This dude plays with a ton of tenacity, and I really like his game, so I have him going to New England. Almost there. 30th overall, Chiefs, 2nd selection of the first round. Here, they ended up taking defensive end George Karlaftis. He ain't on the redraft board anymore, so I gotta change things up. And here, they're gonna go with the position that they took originally, the cornerback spot. Similar to Kansas City's first pick, I had some fun with this one, and you might think it's unrealistic, but I think it'd be absolutely insane. I have them going with cornerback Marcus Jones out of Houston. We quickly came to find out in the Patriots offense with Matt Patricia, nonetheless, that this dude is more than a cornerback. He's a playmaker. They need to get the ball in this kid's hands however they can. Getting versatility like this in the hands of Andy Reid, I mean, I would have had a ton of fun watching that duo go to work. So it sucks that he's stuck with New England in that dreaded offense. I had some fun in this redraft in my own fantasy land and sent him over to the Chiefs. This would have been nuts. Second to last pick belongs to the Cincinnati Bengals. In the actual draft, this is where they ended up going with Daxton Hill, the safety. Did not play too much his rookie year. Do think he steps up very well for them now that Jesse Bates has been sent out the door, but I still have them going in a different direction here. There's another selection I had fun with, and I feel like I'm saying that a lot more than I should, but I have them going with running back Dameon Pierce. He had a monster rookie season with Houston until he got hurt. I know at the time it might not have made a lot of sense because Samaje Perine was there and Joe Mixon was there as well, but seeing Samaje Perine leaving free agency and now Joe Mixon's future with Cincinnati's up in the air, they don't know what's going to happen at the running back spot. It'd be nice to just kind of turn to Dameon and say, hey, it's your turn now. I did once again have some fun with this pick, and Dameon Pierce is a Cincinnati Bengal. And to cap off the redraft, 32nd overall, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock. They originally selected safety Lewis Cine. Unfortunately, we did not see much of him because he was injured. I think it made a lot of sense for them to go in the secondary, so I have them going right back to it in the redraft, and instead are going to go with Jaquan Brisker, who went to the Chicago Bears a little bit later on in the draft. So I'll throw the whole redraft up on screen right here, and that will wrap it up. First round 2022 redraft complete. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. And go over to Twitter, follow me over there. I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in my description. Check out ThriveFantasy, also down in the description. I hope to see you in the next one.
Talking about him, and you talking about him. But you know what you're not talking about? Him!
Big money, big car.